Hey everybody, before we start this video, remember to like and subscribe to the page if you find anything that we say interesting or helpful. Remember to share the pages, the Instagrams, the Facebook, the YouTube channel, all that stuff with friends and family. And I just wanted to get that out of the way, and now let's get into the show. Welcome back to the Motivating Force podcast. I am Josue, and joining me as always we have Justin. Now this episode, I kind of wanted to put out like positive energy. I kind of wanted to talk about like what we're grateful for and putting out that kind of feeling, out into the world, and shed some light on the things that are like positive rays of light for us, and not to be like boasting or saying that like we're better than anybody or better off or anything, but it's good sometimes to reflect on the good things in your life, and hopefully like you guys enjoy some of the things that we find grateful, some of the things that we had to work through, and now we're a little bit better from that, and everything's a learning experience. So just wanted to start off with that.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Through some of the stuff that we're grateful for, maybe it can help some people realize like, hey, you know what, I have that in my life too.
Yeah,
he's grateful for it, maybe I should be grateful too for that. So you never know.
Yeah, because it's honestly, it's good for the soul, and sometimes we just get caught up in all the negatives and all the bad things that are happening in our lives. And there's an overall topic and point to this that I kind of want to get into probably about halfway through. But to start off, the other day, I was just kind of doing my thing in the house, and then my girlfriend mentioned how, like, just in passing, she mentioned how, like, realizing that some of the things in my life have taken a drastic turn, or that like a lot of things have kind of been working in my favor, like smaller things. It's nothing huge, but to me, looking back, it is something big. And I mean, we've been together for about 4 years, maybe a little bit longer, but it's like she's able to see that growth in my life, and it made me take a step back and realize all the little things that have happened. And like I had to think about, maybe it was that I wasn't showing the amount of stress that I had, let's say at the beginning of 2020, right? Because that was a traumatizing experience for everybody in the world. And I mean, I used to be caught up in like the stresses, all the financial issues and all that jazz. And I had to go, maybe she said that because, I mean, I'm not stressing over things anymore. Maybe I'm getting better sleep because of things like that. And 2020 sucked, but when you look at the way life works, I guess sometimes you get good out of the bad, right? And it's having to realize that good to start making a better mindset for yourself. And like people like you, Justin, we've had a lot of growth in different things, and realizing that, maybe it's not the world's out to get us, and we have that world support, or God, karma, Allah, the rulers of the universe,
good vibes.
Yeah, like
the all-knowing good vibes.
Yeah, like they're there to like help us, they push us forward. And it's another thing, like talking about like keeping the close friendships, the close group around you, and that's why we kind of preach on that a lot. But I mention you because it's good to have those people around you, so then you can talk about these things. It's good to talk about like the things that are holding you back. It's good to talk to people that you can confide in and trust in with like their full support, and having that discussion on like, hey, listen, maybe we need smaller closed in groups of friends, so then we can hold each other accountable. So I'm grateful for like the relationship that we have, so then we can really like push ourselves to or at least close to our limits when it comes to achieving goals and finding out the best plan of attack to certain situations. But back to the initial light bulb of the situation, I also started seeing that not only was it the stress, because it wasn't just stress, I sort of like shifted gears to apply things we talked about on the podcast, and like not only just like the positive mental attitude, the setting goals, and creating an easy action plan.
Wait, so you mean to tell me you actually apply what we talk about here on the show to real life? Wow, that's amazing. I can see it's been working good for you.
Well, yeah, because it's not only like de-stressed my situations, not only helped me see the bigger picture on what I want to achieve, it's lifted this veil that I couldn't see before of like that weight off my shoulders, and it helped me, get through a lot. And I mentioned that there was like a bigger topic to all of this, and I heard in passing in a podcast where they mentioned, I guess it's like a Buddhist teaching or something, but it's basically this word called proanoia, right? And everybody knows what paranoia is because, again, like I said, everybody focuses on the negative. But what proanoia is basically the opposite. And instead of thinking that everything's out to get you, thinking that the world's, that it's giving you all these hard times because it hates you or whatever, you're always going to have those hard times. But the proanoia, it's just like a shift in your mindset to start looking at it as the world is there to support you, right? So if you start taking in all these what are or what can seem to be negative situations in a lighter light, in a better light, I should say, then you start to learn from those experiences, and then that way you can grow from them instead of getting stuck in them and constantly think that everything's out to get you. For example, I had, on top of financial issues, on top of, not the healthiest relationship with my girlfriend, as soon as COVID started was when I was supposed to go to Virginia for the officer candidate school for the Marine Corps. And as soon as that quarantine happened, they minimized the amount of people that were able to go, right? I didn't make the cut, unfortunately, but now looking at it, fortunately, right? Because now, one, podcast wouldn't be here, right? We started the podcast because I was able to, spend that extra time here with you talking about all this stuff. And we were able to, well, let me take the credit real quick. I was able to actually push you into starting this, and being a part of it is huge. I'm able to learn on my end and trying to grow and find content for everybody that's listening. And it also helps me. I say that it's like a form of therapy, right? We talk about that all the time, and it's true. We're able to like kind of express our emotions, express our feelings, express our past, and talk about that, kind of bring it back. And it's like the dark times that we went through, we're able to learn from it and grow, so then we don't have that like hiding in our dark corners of our mind.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny how that works too, because again, you get these bigger setbacks in your life sometimes, and up front it looks terrible, like not actually going to OCS when you were supposed to leave. And that's a big issue, right? I mean, that's what you want to do with your life, everything's geared towards that. And instead of just wallowing in that, you're able to be like, okay, well, let's keep working, let's stay active, let's push forward. And now you're where you're at today, and you're here helping me on the show. You're learning, you're growing, I'm learning, I'm growing. And at the end of the day now, looking back on it, you can say, yeah, I'm grateful that I didn't get to ship out when I did, because it's not like that opportunity has sailed. Obviously, you're still waiting to go right now, but you were still able to be productive and do more with your time, which is why having that PMA is such a great thing to have.
Yeah, and not only just that, but it gave me not the option, but it gave me that opportunity to be here, and kind of like bask in that what is unfortunate situation. And it helped me like work through different issues. Imagine if I would have been gone for 6+ weeks, I wouldn't have been able to get through half the problems that I had with myself, my own like bad habits. And I was able to really like create a healthier relationship with my girlfriend. And that's another thing that I'm extremely grateful for. I've talked about her plenty of times on the episodes, and she's a big part of my life. And being able to heal that and kind of work through the problems that we had, I wouldn't have been able to do that as much as if I would have been gone for 6 weeks. So it gave me that extra time, not only just the 6 weeks, but like a year to fix all that. And I mean, like I said, I just wanted to show that gratitude and how that means a lot to me. And hopefully, other people can kind of reflect on, even if it's their own relationships that they're in or lack of relationship, maybe it's good, maybe it's time to kind of feel more comfortable in settling down and having a committed relationship. And like I said, talking with you, that's a big one. I was also able to heal a lot of the issues that I had with my family. So like this podcast helped a lot with that. Not I used to think that there was this like imaginary standard that everybody had for me. Like I always felt like I was being judged or I needed to live up to a certain expectation, especially family. And when I'm sitting there and I'm harboring all this resentment towards different family members, like that's not the healthiest way to live. So I really had to work through, and I mean, we talked about forgiveness a lot, and that's probably the main drive that I had for that episode was healing that relationship with my mom, getting closer to my dad as well. We were always close, but I mean, it's always better to be as close as you can to be to your parents, because they're the ones that brought you into this world, so you have to enjoy the time with them.
Definitely, man. And it's true, because when you do have that negative outlook, like you're saying, you had this imaginary standard that you kind of thought everybody was holding you up to, in that sense, that paranoia towards that, right? Instead of that proanoia. And what happens is a simple question at a family gathering: how's school going? Instead of you thinking about how is school going, you're thinking, oh, well, I got a B in one class and they know about it, and they're just trying to get me to talk about it because they want to create a problem.
Well, not really like that. It was
But
more.
you know what I mean,
Yeah,
though. You get
it would be more like if family members asked me like how I'm still doing in school and all that. Like, I'll be honest, I'm taking a little bit longer than expected to finish school, but their kids were able to finish it 3.5 years, 4 years, and they're a little bit better off. Like their situation is their own situation, and I just felt like they would judge me because I had a different situation. I would always work. I would have 2-3 jobs at times, trying to fit in school and that. Like I would burn out easily, so it would be like I would have that fear of judgment of I'm not living up to the standards that they have for their own kids. But it's having to wipe all that stuff away and then realize like they're just asking to actually find out, to be helpful, to give their input, how they can help and all that.
You realized you weren't being attacked.
Yeah, like I had like extreme guilt and like fears of stuff like that weighing over me, and I mean just the past year alone I've been able to grow from all types of things like that. But also when it comes to friends groups again, realizing that some of the people that I was hanging out with weren't the best. My girlfriend would say for years, like, she wouldn't like to hang out with my friends because whatever the excuse was at the time. And I would just look at it as, oh, you just don't like my friends, whatever. Like, and then I would kind of have like that resentment towards her for it. But then now looking back at it, I'm like, oh, it's because they were crappy to me, or like they would put me down and I would just kind of rub it off, and she didn't like that. So having a healthier, close group of friends, I was able to build better relationships with them. I mean, Marcus, we talk about him a lot. I don't see him often, but he's a really close friend that I have. And I was able to build up, by the way, Marcus, twitch.tv/Taekwondo. Always, I mean, it's been a while since we shouted him out. People like Vespertine, there you go, the cup. Haven't even met him in person, but formed a great bond with him. And he started off just a fan of the show, and he lives in the UK. So having people like that are there to support you, even if they're on the other side of the world, is better than having people that live next door to you and are terrible to you. So being able to fix those friendship circles and the groups of people that I would hang around with helped my relationship, helped my life, because now everybody's kind of holding me accountable to the goals that I'm setting and helping me through them and achieving those goals in general.
Yeah, I mean, it really goes to say a lot, too, with the power of PMA and being grateful and being able to reflect on these things within yourself, and the opportunities that opens up for you, because it's like with our good buddy Vespertine, he is over in the UK. We've never met him in person, and he's been such a great friend to us, a great business partner as well. I mean, hell, we wouldn't even have the intro we have without him. He's done all that for us, and just a great guy, And if you're constantly caught up in this headspace of negativity and just being in your own mind all the time with like guilt and things like that, when these opportunities arise that can seem kind of crazy, like making good friends with people who live literally halfway across the world, you're definitely not going to see that opportunity because you're so focused inwards, or you're so focused on people just being out to get you, that you're not able to get into some really amazing opportunities in your life. So it's really important to be able to reflect on that. And another good point that I wanted to mention, as you're kind of talking in with the relationships and whatnot, or your past friendships, and reflecting on things that happened years ago, is I kind of wish people would take more time to reflect on things that happened a long time ago. Because when you do, and it's the same thing as I already kind of mentioned earlier, where, you know, in the moment, things can suck. Especially when doors close, opportunities fade, it's going to suck. But the longer away you get from that, and the better attitude that you have, the more productivity you see in that timeline, and the more you can be grateful that that thing didn't happen or did. And you can move forward from that. And just being able to reflect on those things instead of keeping it buried in your mind and being scared of exploring that idea, go back to those ideas, look at them and be like, okay, but where am I at now? And you'd be like, wow, yeah, I've made some great growth. I'm glad that didn't happen or did happen. And then when you finally come to terms with that, it's no longer a thought in your head anymore. It's gone. You're free from it. And all that does is open up more doors.
Yeah, and that's kind of like why I mentioned that at the beginning, that we kind of bring up like the traumas and the negatives from the past on the podcast, and it kind of helps us get through it in that form of therapy. And like you said, we should have we should make that more of like a common thing in society. And I think we talked about it a week or two ago, that we mentioned trauma, and we mentioned how important it is to work through that because it impacts the rest of your life. And like I said, with the guilt and the shame and living up to this imaginary standard, like I wouldn't have been able to get through that if I would have been gone, especially at that point in my life that I was at right at the beginning of quarantine. And I'm scared sometimes to try to imagine where I would be right now if I would have gone. You know, I would like to think, you know, my career is in motion, my set path for my life is starting, but all the other little things on the side would probably break apart. You know, like, I mean, I'm assuming on my end, I don't want to speak for you, but that we kind of grew closer over quarantine, over this podcast and everything. We were close before, but it was more of a connection that we had. And like, if I would have gone for 6 weeks, let's say, then came back, my relationship probably would have been close to done, because it was close to done at a lot of times. And if I wasn't able to fix all that and then be gone for a month and a half, like, imagine where I would be. And it is scary to think like that, but it's a lot better to think about that concept, that pronoia. And look, there was things that it was put into place, or that I wasn't able to go, these events that happened for a reason, you know, and this is the bigger reason. And now I'm able to look back on everything and be grateful for the things that didn't happen, and then the things that I have in my life, and how much, you know, I'm continuing to grow on it. I've talked about how I'm working on patience and all that, but it's all for the better good, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the what ifs can be a really scary place to be, and that's on both sides of the spectrum there. Whereas, like, you reflect now, like, man, what if I did go? Think about all these things that where I would be in life, right? Like, yeah, I might have a flourishing career, but personally, probably not so well. And the same thing goes when you miss good opportunities. It's like, oh, well, what if? You know, what if these things happened? And I hate it when people use what if. Yeah. Because what if a meteor hits Earth tomorrow and the human race no longer exists anymore, right? It's something that can happen. So why don't you focus on that what if? What's the difference? What's the point? And you're like, oh, well, this is more relevant to me. And it's like, well, okay, now that you're thinking like that, is it?
Okay.
Is it actually more relevant to you, or are you where you're at and you need to come to terms with that and move forward in life? You know? And a lot of that's the hard truth in positivity and negativity, and kind of, reality kind of sits in the middle of being positive and being negative. And it kind of sucks to have to realize that, but when you do, and you just get to be more grounded with yourself and come to terms with the reality and stop asking what if and just start asking, well, what can I do now?
Yeah.
And move forward in life and get these things done. And because it helps both ways. When things are going great for you and you want to keep that momentum going and go forward, you can. And when things are going bad for you, being stagnant when things are bad is a hell of a lot worse than being stagnant when things are good, because you can fall off the cliff real fast.
Yeah.
So just being able to move forward and just being like, what can I do now? If your girlfriend or your boyfriend just left you, if you just got fired from a job, don't sit there and focus on that. Be like, okay, well, what can I do now? Do I need to go get another relationship right away? Or was there kind of a problem with me that I need to work on? I got fired from work. Well, is it just cutbacks because COVID happened? Or am I really just actually that lazy? And come to terms with the reality and then ask yourself, what can I do now, and move forward.
Right. And also, like I mentioned how like growing from this podcast has helped me a lot. And I've learned a lot, especially from like your episodes when you do the, like you push all the goal planning and all that stuff. The difference between going enlisted and going to OCS, right? It's a very crucial difference, is that enlistment, you usually always pass, right? You always get through. OCS, you can drop out, you can fail. They can tell you, hey, pack your stuff, go home. You're not going to make it through.
Yeah.
And learning from these podcasts, like I said, the goal planning, I have so many more tools in my tool belt, like you mentioned, to have a better experience and not kind of like just kind of push through everything when I'm there, because there was a higher chance of me failing. I'm not saying that I was looking at it like I'm going to fail, but there is realistically a higher chance of me failing because I didn't have all these tools in my toolbox. I was just going to power through everything and start hitting a nail with a wrench or a screwdriver, instead of hitting it with a hammer, like you mentioned. And by the way, that's Monday's episode if you haven't checked that out. So go check that one out. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I was able to grow a lot more from this, and it all came from what seemed like an unfortunate situation, which now will help me in the future. And okay, but like I always say, like the negatives are always going to happen in your life, but it's always better for you and your mental health and your stress and all that level to go down and disappear, right? Is to look at it in this pronoia sense of mindset of thinking, okay, maybe, a lot of people like Christianity and different religions say like God is putting things in place for you, or he's opening doors for you. And look at it as life as well, if you're not religious, that these things are being put into place for a reason, and it's there to support you. It's not there against you. And that shift has helped me so much, and I just really hope that helps a lot of people out there, because these negative times are going to happen, but you have to be able to take that in a better light and work through it and grow from it. So then, even if to stop them from reoccurring as much as they are, or just trying to get you into a better person instead of living in this person that's just stuck looking at all the negatives in your life, going through mental health issues because all you're taking is negativity all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see where I've kind of put my own twist here on the pronoia aspect of it. And it's kind of funny because over the last week or so, obviously I go through Facebook and Instagram or whatnot, so that way I can reply to all of our wonderful messages. So be sure to send those messages because we do reply. But I've just been seeing some stuff on there lately that's just been, right under the skin, man. And it's all stems from people being ungrateful. And it's like one just quick example, because I don't want to get too deep here, but the person's talking about like the difference between like the single mom and the millionaire, and they're like using the quote, we all have 24 hours in a day. And they're like, that's a shitty excuse because the mom has to go pick up her kid from daycare. She probably works 2 jobs. She does this, she does that, she does this. So don't tell me those 24 hours are the same. And it's like, oh man, it just gets me so deep, because I'm like, well, for the millionaire, you're right. The 24 hours aren't the same. That millionaire's in business meetings. He's got to make sure, his Lamborghini is washed. He's got to make sure that, the house is taken care of and all the maids are getting paid and all this stuff, right? And it's like, it's all the same stuff.
It's just
we're all
different
we're
object.
All people. It's just different things. We also have the same task. We do have the same 24 hours in a day. It's all about how you look at it. And if you're ungrateful for the fact that, you're working a whole bunch to put your kid through daycare, then make a change. It's not hard. It's really not. It's going to take time. Don't get me wrong, but you can make changes. And all of it stems from the way you look at things, which is why coming into this, I love it, because I love you talking about your growth and how far you've come with everything. And it's great. I appreciate that. I'm glad I was a part of that. But people really do need to take that step back and just be a little bit more grateful for shit, And I say that with all intentions of that word, because I mean it like that, You really do. It will change your life. It will make things better for you.
Yeah, I love it. And to wrap it up again, grateful for yourself, for this friendship that we have, for the podcast, grateful for the relationship that I was able to better with my girlfriend and my family and my parents, and all of that. It goes a long way to bettering myself. But also, if you guys want to help out, again, I mentioned it at the beginning of this episode, remember, you can help grow this podcast. You can like and share. You can subscribe. Do all that jazz. Links to all the socials are down in the description below. Remember, we're also on Anchor, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that. We're on there now. Only source of video is going to be on YouTube. So whichever one you guys prefer, go ahead and check it out. I think those streaming services for the other podcasts you can rate. So go ahead, rate them. 5 stars would be best. But, whatever you guys feel is best for however you took in this information.
And the one question for the day for you guys, I just want to know one thing you're grateful for. Just one. That's it. Just let me know down below. I'd love to hear from you guys.
And until next time, go and get.